Um, we are basically the U.S. is just one nation, but it's on two divergent paths. Um, Now, the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they offer two very different lessons about America. Now, in one aspect, political leaders are like teachers, they teach us everything. Now, this is true even if they do not intend it. Basically, political leaders are supposed to be role models. They could either be good or bad, and even so for the public. Now, political leaders also educate the public about specific policy issues and matters of national concern. Now, healthy societies produce healthy leaders. Unhealthy societies produce unhealthy societies produce unhealthy leaders. Now, in that way, the leader as a type of teacher is a way of judging the values, collective beliefs, and future direction of a community. Several American presidents, for example, were former school teachers, like Lyndon Johnson, who was a president, was also a public school teacher in rural Texas. His experiences there inspired him to support such landmark legislation as Project Head Start. As exemplified by their recent behavior, President Joe Biden and Donald Trump are two very different types of leaders and teachers. Now, Biden is a humane teacher, and he values reason, critical thinking, intelligence, human empathy, and patience. He believes in American democracy and in the nation's ability to rise to the challenges that we are facing through dialogue and compromise. Now, last week, President Biden channeled those values and beliefs in a type of national civics lesson during a speech marking the creation of a library honoring Senator John McCain, the late Senator John McCain, at Arizona State University. And Biden said the following about the democracy crisis. Basically, he says, I have made the defense, the protection, and the preservation of American democracy, and he basically says, I made this the central cause of my presidency. Now, from Gettysburg to his to my inaugural address and to the anniversary of the January 6th Klan insurrection and to Independence Hall in Philadelphia and Union Station in Washington, he's spoken about the danger of election denialism and political violence in the battle for the soul of America. Now, today in Phoenix, Arizona, at an institute devoted to the defense of democracy named in honor of a true patriot, I'm here to speak about another threat to our democracy, and that we too often ignore, the threat to our institutions, to our Constitution itself, and the very character of our nation. As I've always been clear, democracy is not a partisan issue, it's an American issue, and we know how damaged our institutions of democracy are, our judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, and how we have become in the eyes of the American people, not even the world, from attacks within the past few years. And we should all remember, democracies don't have to die at the end of a rifle. They can die when people are silent and when they fail to stand up or condemn threats to democracy. Now, President Biden also focused specifically on the threat to democracy represented by Donald Trump himself, the MAGA movement, and the ascendant neo-fascism. There is something dangerous happening in America. There is an extremist movement that does not share our basic beliefs about democracy, and that's the MAGA movement. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans, adhere to the extremist MAGA ideology. Now, I know because I've been able to work with, basically he's been able to work with Republicans his whole career, but there is no question that today's Republican Party is driven and intimidated by MAGA extremists. Their extreme agenda, if carried out, would fundamentally alter the institutions of American democracy as we fucking know it. But as we've said before, we're at an inflection point in our history, one of those moments that only happens once every few generations, where the decisions we make today will determine the course of this country and the world for decades to come. So you, me, and every American who is committed to preserving our democracy carries a special responsibility. We have to stand up for America's values embodied in the Declaration of Independence, because we know the MAGA extremists have already proven that they won't. And we have to stand up for our Constitution and the institutions of democracy, because MAGA extremists have made it clear that they won't either. Now, history is going to remember this and watch it. The world is watching. The most important, our children and grandchildren are watching. If we have any of those, I don't have any kids, so I can care less. I mean, at least on that part, because my kids won't be watching if I don't have any. In total, Biden's Arizona speech is one of the most important in American history, and it will be studied in the future, assuming that Trumpism and neo-fascism do not triumph and then install an Orwellian thought crime regime, as a landmark document in the country's struggle in the 21st century to remain a democracy anyway. Now, the second lesson was President Biden's Sunday interview with ProPublica, during which Biden continued to teach about the fragile nature of the American democracy and what must be done to preserve and protect it. Biden explained to ProPublica that Trump and the MAGA movement are enemies of democracy, and they're willing to do anything, including committing violence, to get and keep power. Now, I think this is the last grasp, or maybe the first big grasp, of the MAGA Republicans. Republicans, as I like to call them, and I think Trump has concluded that he has to win, even though he needs to lose, and they'll pull out at all the stops to try to make sure he gets a win, even though he shouldn't be winning at all. President Biden also shared his worries about a Supreme Court that is dominated by right-wing extremists who place a party and power over the law, the Constitution, and the well-being of the country. Biden also emphasized the dangers that disinformation and conspiracy theories and other lies that are circulated online, and especially throughout the right-wing propaganda echo chamber, and what they represent to democracy and the civil society. Now, he also cautioned against how third-party candidates in this time of democracy crisis could empower Donald Trump and the MAGA movement to return to the White House. During his ProPublica interview, President Biden also explained why he is the best choice to defeat Trump and the Republican fascist and MAGA movement in the 2024 election. Basically, Biden says he's not the only Democrat that can protect it. He says, I just happen to be the Democrat who I think is best positioned to see it to the guy. I was worried about taking on democracy is not. Now, President Biden had also offered this important teaching about how a healthy democracy and the civil society are dependent upon on a respectful discourse across lines of reasonable political difference. Now, you get kind of in a two-way conversation. Now, people really do believe that the vast majority of the American people are decent, honorable, and straightforward. Well, at least the Democrats are. The Republicans, not too much. And we have to though understand what the danger is if they don't participate. Now, by comparison, Donald Trump is a type of cruel teacher. He's a political sadist, a fascist, and a demagogue, and he basically teaches through being mean, lies, bullying, and basically by touting threats of violence. And he rejects reason, he rejects intelligence, he rejects dialogue, and he rejects the facts. He rejects hard work, he rejects kindness, he rejects goodness, empathy, reason, and contemplation. This is all shit that he rejects, and he basically does not listen to. Now, Trump's style of teaching is in keeping with how mental health professionals have warned that he has a primitive personality, a diseased mind, and he's a pathological lying character. Now, in his role as a type of evil leader, Trump recently threatened the life of Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Mark Milley. Trump also recently went to a gun show in South Carolina and he posed with a pistol that was engraved with his ugly-ass image. Now, Trump is continuing to publicly support the January 6th traitors, the Klan terrorists and traitors that attacked the Capitol. Trump is also escalating his threats against Special Counsel Jack Smith, Attorney General Garland, and the prosecutors, attorney generals, and other members of law enforcement who are attempting to hold him responsible for his obvious crimes that he's committed. Now, Trump and his sycophants are also intimidating and harassing prospective jurors, witnesses, and members of law enforcement that the ex-squatter has designated as enemies of the MAGA political cult and the neo-fascist movement. Now, Trump is also given a master lesson on what political theories and philosophers describe as a type of anti-politics. He is teaching his sycophants and the American people that the rule of law, the Constitution, democracy, and civil society are not to be respected or have any legitimacy whatsoever. But instead, Trump and his MAGA movement are the real authorities and power in American society, which they're not. And to that end, right-wing violence and corrupt power, which are anti-ethical to a healthy democracy, are to be normalized. And this would mean the end of America's multiracial pluralistic democracy. As seen on January 6th, which is the Klan attack day, and in mass shootings and other violence targeting black and brown people and other enemies of the MAGA movement, and the white right assassination attempts and threats against President Obama and President Biden, a recent apparent politically motivated shooting by a MAGA cultist in New Mexico, a Republican fascist party that is increasingly extreme, as it wholeheartedly rejects real democracy, and a social environment where right-wing violence and terrorism are now the greatest threat to public safety. Now, Trump's teachings and examples are being enthusiastically embraced by tens of millions of sycophants. Now, the American people, the news media, and their role as the fourth estate and guardians of democracy, and the responsible political class and other elites have a choice to make back in the 2024 election as it rapidly approaches. Now, will they listen and follow Joe Biden's teachings and examples about the importance of an engaged citizenship and democracy and freedom? Or will they instead choose to embrace Donald Trump and his cruel teaching on fascism, authoritarianism, demagoguery, and other anti-democracy and anti-human values? Now, the future of the country depends on that fucking choice alone. So if you like the video, you can get the video, like, and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a little as $3 a video or a monthly donation can help go a long way. And thanks for listening.